Hey guys, this is Emerson over at ALTA Racks. Today we're going to be showing you how to put together any Superior rack in our rack lineup. After video one, you should get to this point here where you have your hitch put together with the main beam on, the latch facing backwards, and it should be either on your mobile floor stand or on your car, just to make sure you get that solid ground so you can put everything
on a car. Is really easy.
Yeah.
Like once you make sure you got the stabilizer on and everything's super tight. And start by, first step is what?
So first step, you're going to take your top bar and install these two bolts here, the 3-inch bolts in this pattern here. So you want the bracket facing down with it backwards.
Yeah, so the top bar always towards the vehicle, and then the sticker is away from the vehicle.
There's going to be 2 bolts on the side and 1 in the front.
And you got the 3-inch bolts, 3/8 bolts that each come with two washers and a nylock nut. As you can see, we just hand tighten everything, right?
Then, before you put on your gussets, you're going to want to put on your baskets.
Yep. So we're going to put a couple of baskets on as an example. We just want to show you.
Slide these on.
So depending on the rack you get, and look, this is an ocho, right? So I should be able to fit like 3 baskets right there in between. By the time I need to get to the gussets, I can even get tighter if I wanted to. But on the E-Quattro, you would get about 3 there, and then 1 on the other side. On a 45er, you get 2 on each side. On a 76er, you get, depending again on the bike distances, these are all adjustable. So these are just arbitrary depending on your need, bike sizes, clearance between bikes. That's why it's like so configurable. So what's the next step?
Next step is you want to put your gussets on. So pretty much everything right now is going to be finger tight. We're going to tighten it all later. But there's going to be 2 of these 1-inch bolts per gusset. They go in these 2 top holes up here.
And then maybe shorter lengths on some of the other racks, right?
Yeah.
So those gusset bolts can be different lengths. We might go to a 3/4, we might go to a 1/2, depending on clearances that we need to have. But yeah, for this one right now, we're using a 1-inch bolt, and they just thread in by hand.
Yeah, just thread them in by hand. Don't have to be super tight at all. Just enough to hold the gusset so it's not flopping around.
And then they just sit there hanging on the bottom, kind of just interfacing around. Same thing on the other side.
For the E-Quattro and the E-Dub, it's only going to be 1 gusset.
Yep.
But for your 76er, Ocho, and 45er, you're going to have 2.
So you can see a couple of gussets floating. If you would have packed this rack, we would have put in the baskets on both sides on the inside. You definitely want to do that, because if you forget that, then you got to loosen those bolts and slide your baskets in. So what's the next step?
Next step is going to be the low bar. So you're going to get, with these Superior racks, you're going to get these 3.5-inch bolts, and you're going to get an optional 3.5-inch bolt with these 8 washers.
What is that bolt for?
So this is depending on how far up you mount your top bar. If you go all the way at the top, you're going to need
the last hole.
You're going to need these washers to fill the gap here, because
where? Right there?
Yeah, right here on this hole here, on this hole.
So the top hole, if you were going to use that top hole, since there is no metal, right, you put 4 washers on each side basically to fill that up.
Because otherwise we're going to use the latch and the low bar bracket as our spacers essentially.
Yep.
Whereas if you went to the top hole, there's obviously there's no metal there, so you need the washers to kind of fill that gap.
Okay.
But for this one, since we have the top bar pretty low, we're just going to use these 3.5-inch bolts.
Yep.
And then depending on where you mount your top bar, you're going to want to undo one of your latch bolts. So we'll take that out real quick.
So what drives the top bar installation location, you think? Like, what is it, a vehicle thing or a bike thing?
It can be a vehicle thing or a bike thing. So for vans, you're going to want that top bar all the way up, because to get the bikes way off the ground, so you're not...
Low vehicles, right?
Yeah,
like, so if you got minivans and stuff like that.
Minivans are the lowest ones.
Same thing if you're running a short hitch, right? Because it lowers the rack. And then yeah.
And then also, if you, depending on what your bike size is, so if you're like 6'6", you got a double XL bike, you're gonna want that top bar all the way up. So
maybe you got a dirty 6er.
Maybe you got a dirty 6er.
Yeah.
You want that top bar all the way up so you get that big ground clearance.
Yeah.
So the low bar, these little cutouts right here fit perfectly around the latch. So you're just gonna line up on the latch and then throw in your top hole. Again, that'll just hold it in place, and you can put these, put a washer and a nut on, just kind of finger tighten it, just like that. And then for the 3.5-inch bolts, same thing, they're gonna come assembled like this. You're gonna have to take the nut off and one of the washers. Then you're gonna thread in through your gusset, through your latch hole, and then through the main beam as well. So Might take a little bit of finagling, but
Yeah, this is when you need 3 hands sometimes.
yeah.
Well, it's a one time, right? Once you set this
Yeah, once you
up,
do it, make sure you get a washer on there. Finger tight as well. And then since those are kind of lined up, it's pretty easy to put in the other bolts.
Yeah, and everything is just finger tight. And for a good reason, because we torque at the end.
Yep. Once you get to this point, pretty much everything is on and secure. You can go ahead and tighten all the rest of the bolts and get your basket on, get your bikes on and go riding.
So you could put your additional baskets on. If you got an Ocho, there's going to be another video on how to set up that low bar and then install it on here. But for any other rack, this is basically the basic setup for the Superior racks when they're involving gusset, no matter if it's one-sided or two-sided. It's going to integrate in here. As you can see, we have longer bolts that can go through multiple layers of steel as things get thicker or narrower, and we can fill with washers. You still have full adjustability of the top bar to go up and down depending on your bike length and the vehicle type, and you have other options where you can run this kick out adapter if you need to push those rear wheels up and out. This is Emerson and Ali from ALTA Racks. This is the Superior video. Have a great day, y'all.